As we continue our previews for season 2020 here on Footy on 9, we're joined by the Age Chief Football Writer in Jake Niall to have a look at which team, Jake?
The Hawks, Hawthorn.
All right, where do you want to start? Because they are something of an enigma of the competition, or at least they were last season.
Yes, but they're always hard to play against because they're coached by Alistair Clarkson. They've got a core of experienced players. At the end of the year, they absolutely smashed West Coast in Perth, and if they'd made the 8, I think they would have caused a bit of grief. So they won't. I think they'll be pretty good.
Buoyed by the fact they're obviously getting back the likes of Tom Mitchell, but they've also got some very other handy inclusions.
Yeah, well, the big one is Jonathan Patton. They've got him very cheaply. They're able to do that as they did with Tom Scully, his old teammate. In effect, he's replacing Jared Roughead, the great Jared Roughead, of course, who's retired and is working off-field role at St Kilda. So Patton, if he can just hold up and give them 40 goals, they'll have quite a potent forward line, I think, obviously with Chad Wingard there as well.
Sam Frost comes from Melbourne. He's in for a rude shock, isn't he? I mean, without denigrating the Melbourne Football Club, he's suddenly going to Hawthorn. Best coach in the business, arguably the team of the modern era. He's in for a bit of a culture shock.
Well, the other thing about Hawthorn is you have to be able to kick the ball is another sort of imperative at the Hawks, and Sam Frost's disposal has never been that good. Look, he's got to earn his spot in that side. I think he'll get the call up, but they've got Chipper Frawley, James Frawley still there as well, and of course they're planning to play Ben McAvoy behind the ball as a sort of defender quite a bit. Now, may change. They did it successfully at the end of last year, but that being the case, Frost will have to play well just to get a game.
You mentioned Jared Roughead among the outs for Hawthorn. Grant Birchall's another one. They'll miss him not just for what he did on the field, but just being around.
Yeah, they will miss him, but they've still got, I think, that's more than outweighed by the level of experience that they've still got. They're one of the older lists in the competition, and I don't think, I mean, Birchall, he didn't play much. If you look at the last 3 years, he really struggled to get on the park.
What about their draftees? Their highest pick was 13?
Yeah, Will Day comes in. They haven't had a pick even at that level for that often. I don't think the expectations on him are very great. Hawthorn don't tend to push players through too quickly. The next pick is very interesting. Finn McGuinness, whose father, Scott McGuinness, played in the 88 and 89 premierships.
You would have covered his matches?
I did. I did, and I know his father. He's a very promising big midfielder with an enormous ability to run. Maybe a bit of work on the disposal. I think there's a chance he'll play some games.
Were they officially in rebuild mode last year?
I don't think so. I don't think Hawthorn really believe in a full-scale rebuild. I think that's one thing that differentiates them from some other clubs. I think there's a view almost that once you go to full rebuild, you're stuffed. And that's been how Clarkson has operated the whole time they've been there, other than the first few years when they genuinely were down the bottom and came up.
So players that were there when they were unbeatable and players that are there now, I mean, that mindset doesn't change, does it?
No, it doesn't, even though they're not. And the thing that they are is that when you play them, if you don't play well, you get beaten. They're a difficult team to play against, Tony. So, there's no confusion about how they play. I think their game plan, from what I gather, will be similar to what it was at the very end of last year. Alistair Clarkson modified the game plan somewhat. They went a bit straighter at the goal and they weren't kicking the ball around with that famous sort of foot skills sort of style. They were going a little bit more attacking and straight at the sticks.
Can I ask you about their back line in particular? Because that's an interesting beast, isn't it?
Yeah, well, they've got James Sicily, who I think is close to, outside of Tom Mitchell, I'd say he's their best player. He's just such an attacking weapon, and they want him to be freed up to be able to take the game on from behind the ball. Yeah, and they've got, they've got Ben Stratton, and I think, I don't think he had the best year he's had, and so if he can come back to good form, and they can work out how they're going to have these tall backs working, whether it's Frost, McAvoy, how that works, then I think their springboard from behind the ball will be quite good.
What about the midfield? You talk about the Hawthorn midfield, and I immediately think of Warple.
Yeah, well, Warple's a player that has shocked everyone, that as a second-year player winning the best and fairest. I suppose he may get more attention, Tony, in his third year. That tends to happen. So they often talk about second-year blues. Maybe, I don't think he'll have third-year blues. Sam Mitchell has had a big role in his development, and so I think who, of course, will be a senior coach, and big chance he'll be the next coach of Hawthorn. Warple certainly benefited from that.
I think even non-Hawthorn people are looking forward to seeing Tom Mitchell back out there again.
Absolutely, and I think if Tom Mitchell can stand up, it's probably the difference from being where they were last year, which was just outside the 8, and sneaking in.
All right, let's get your predictions now.
Yep.
The pressure is on.
The pressure's on Chad Wingard. He's the obviously came across from Port, star player, hasn't really performed in that first year to the level that he could. Showed flashes late in the season, so he's under the pump.
And the big improver for Hawthorn.
Wingard, I'm backing him to do it. So
The double.
I think he'll do the double. I think he's under pressure, but I think he'll come through because he's just so talented.
And in 2020, I want you to really look into your crystal ball now. Where will Hawthorn finish?
I think they'll make the bottom part of the 8. So I don't think they're going to contend for the premiership, but I think they'll be in the lower reaches. I've got them just in, of course, subject to injury, Tony, like all these teams.
All right, Chief Football Writer for the Age newspaper, Jake Niall, and of course more predictions and more previews of the AFL Season 2020 right here on Footy on 9. Check it out, wwos.com.au. And for all the previews, just go to 9 Now. We'll see you soon.